Howdy boys and girls, welcome to another VeloNomad.com video. Today we're talking survival. A really good question from my very good friend Chris, who sent in his question by video. Over to you, Chris.
Hi, my name's Chris, long-time reader, first-time caller of VeloNomad. Got a question for you, Tim. About to do the Alpine Classic 250k this weekend up in Bright. 250k is 4,100 metres of ascent. And I haven't had the best lead up, and so I'm just wondering what are the key things that I need to take into consideration to get through this ride. I know you've done a lot of similar rides, taps and similar, so if you've got any advice for me in relation to tapering, nutrition, sleep. Should I do the 4 a.m. or the 6:20 a.m. start? What do you reckon? Any helpful tips would be great. Thank you very much.
Okay, so how does one survive 12 hours in the saddle over 4,000 or 4,500 metres and 250 k's? Ideally, you'd hop in your time machine and go back 4, 6, 12 months and start training your butt off. But for most of us who don't have a time machine, here's how we do it. Two things, pacing and nutrition. So let's talk about nutrition first, because pacing is a very long discussion. The best thing to do is to know what works for you well before the event. So leading up to the event, even if it's just a month or a few weeks beforehand, do some really long rides, really put your body under pressure and test what works, test different products, test different timing for fueling. And remember that you can't replace all your lost calories, you can only replenish them. So the human body can only process a certain amount of calories every hour. It's somewhere between 150 and 300 depending what your physiology is like and your biochemistry and whatever else. And also when you eat, your body sends blood from your muscles to your digestive system, taking oxygen away from your muscles. So the more you eat, the more detrimental it's going to be. So you need to work out what's going to work for you, do some big rides beforehand, try different products like I said. And it might just be a case of having a gel every hour or 2 gels an hour, whatever it is. For me, I use Hammer Heed, which is an electrolyte powder. I put it in water. Also have just plain water, and I have gels like 2 an hour, and that's it. And I just stick to my plan. I don't have bars and stuff like that. I find the solid food really affects me. I just like having carbohydrates. And on longer rides, I have something called Hammer Perpetuum, which has some other stuff in it as well, not just carbohydrates. So anything over sort of 5 to 6 hours, I have Perpetuum. It tastes horrible, but it bloody well works. It just works. And also, if you're fueling, have a backup plan. So if things start going awry, like you start getting cramps, you have something that you know will work that you can eat. So you can hop off the bike and have something. Quick example, Etape 2010 was a really hot day. I was under condition because I'd been sick in the months leading up to, so I didn't have the opportunity to train, take my own advice. Got to the bottom of the Col du Tourmalet. I was absolutely knackered, cramping, and I just ate too much food. I had 2 cans of Coke, all this solid food. And so then riding up the Col du Tourmalet, which is a long, long way, I was just utterly stuffed because I didn't have enough oxygen going to my muscles because my body was processing the food. So the key things are have a plan and set a food that works before the event, so you're not experimenting, and have a backup plan. So I have Hammer Endurolite, so if I start feeling a bit crampy, I have a couple of capsules, full spectrum electrolyte, not just salt. You need a potassium, magnesium, calcium, all the other stuff, not just salt. Okay, which brings us to pacing. Number one thing you need to do is get this book, Training with Power Meter by Joe Friel, if you have a power meter, or if you're planning on getting one. If you don't have one, don't worry. So there's 3 ways you can pace yourself on the day. You can use perceived effort, which is rank amateur sort of stuff. Don't even bother unless you're a pro. Second method is heart rate, which works really, really well, and it's how I used to pace myself. And the third method is with a power meter. So let's talk about heart rate first. I guess heart rate's really accessible for most people, so you can get a cheap heart rate monitor and just a Garmin 200 or some other device. Basically what you need to do is work out your lactate threshold or your threshold heart rate, and that's the point in your heart rate where the lactate can't be cleared out of your muscles by your body. So that's when you start getting that burn. It's basically the red zone. So the longer you spend in the red zone or with your heart over your threshold, the more detrimental it's going to be. So what you need to do is work out your threshold heart rate. I've got a link to the test below. Very, very simple. And then up all the climbs, stay below your threshold heart rate. Sorry, being attacked by mosquitoes here. Stay below your threshold heart rate as much as you can. So on all the climbs, just even if it means just spinning and guys are going past you, just pace yourself. Keep under that heart rate, and on the downhills, just roll downhill. And it should help a lot. It's a little bit less scientific than using a power meter, which is what I want to talk about now. Now, a quick personal example. Peaks Gold Coast 2016. August 2016, that was 235 Ks. It was a 260k day for me, 4,500 meters about. I hadn't done a 200k ride in about 3 years before that. I hadn't done 100 Ks in probably 4 or 5 months. We just had a baby, so I didn't have any bike fitness. So I was maybe doing 60 Ks a week. So for me, it was survival. So exactly what we're talking about. I wasn't heavier than I should be, like our friend Chris was or is. But I just didn't have that really high-end fitness, like race fitness, as it were. So how did I survive? Well, going back to this book, there are lots of ways or variables we can target that come out of this book. But the key things you need to know is your threshold power, your FTP, and also the intensity factor, which again you need to read about in this book. I'm not going to explain it. The intensity factor you want to target. So for me, I had an intensity factor of about 0.85 for this ride that I wanted to target, and I had my threshold power, which is a very miserly 245 watts, which, like I said, I was very unfit. And what I was able to do was, on the ride, I used those two numbers to pace myself. So the first climb was like 50 Ks in. It was 20% for 2K, something like that. And I got to that climb, and I basically had big guys barreling past me, and I just stuck to my threshold power, even though I felt really fresh. Because I knew that if I stuck to that throughout the day, I'd be okay at the end. So basically, I spent as much as I could of my time well under that threshold power. So not at the threshold power, but well under. Because what I wanted to do was get to the end of the ride with my intensity factor around 0.85. Top of the first climb, my intensity factor, my IF was well over 1, it was like 1.2. Same on at the top of the next climb, because it was such a lot of climbing. But what I noticed is, because I was riding a little bit too hard, I was starting to feel cramp or twinges, not cramp, but just some twinges. So what I did was I backed my power on all the climbs well off. Like instead of climbing at 230 watts or 20 watts, I climbed at 180 watts. What that let me do was pace myself and keep my legs fresh. So at the end of the day, or up the last climb, which was about 190 or 80 Ks in or something like that, my legs were really fresh, and I was actually able to climb at a much higher wattage because I paced myself using power. Now, going back to heart rate's it's great to train to and to pace to, but it's a little bit imprecise because it follows your it's kind of linked to your fitness and your stress and whether you've been drinking alcohol and your tiredness. But power is really precise. Power is power. It's an absolute value. So yeah, using those figures, I was able to pace myself much more precisely. And just linking in nutrition there, about kilometre 150, I was starting to feel really, really poorly. And we got to a food station, everyone was hoeing into scones and fruitcake, but instead of doing that, I just stuck to my nutrition plan, had a couple of Hammer Enduro lights, and about 20 Ks later, because I stuck to my nutrition plan, halfway up a climb, my legs came good again. And for the last sort of 100 Ks, I was completely fine. Sore, yes, but 2 days later, my legs weren't sore at all because I'd paced myself. So, rambling a little bit, but if you have a power meter, get this book, work out your threshold power, and know what intensity factor you want to target. For the less fit riders, probably around 0.5 to 0.7 for a big ride. For the fitter riders, say 0.7, 0.85. And like I said, during the ride, if you know these numbers, you can pace yourself properly. You'll get to the end of the ride. Like going back to my example, the first 2 climbs I was like 1.2 intensity factor, which is extremely intense. But by the end of the ride, I got it back down to 0.85, which was my target, just by pacing myself. And I used my threshold power on all the climbs, and on the downhills, I didn't push the wattage. I just rolled downhill. That's another thing this book talks about. There's a special rule in it. So basically, whenever you're doing over 50 Ks an hour, you just coast. And whenever you're doing sort of 10 to 20 Ks, you go up to your threshold power. So you use gravity on downhills just to rest your legs. It's pretty simple. And on uphills, you can push closer to your power. So it gives you that overall nice pacing so you get to the end of your ride. with your target intensity. So for someone like Chris, who does have a power meter, or if you don't have a power meter, use your heart rate, threshold heart rate. Get a book like this, work out your target intensity factor for the ride, which is basically how intense the ride is. And over the course of the day, on all the climbs, you keep well under your threshold power. Eat properly on all the downhills, you roll downhill. Have all your nutrition strategy and what you're going to eat and when dialed, so you don't have to think about it. You just pull out a gel, eat it. Pull out a gel, eat it. Have a sip of water, and you know exactly what you're doing, and all you can do is concentrate on the ride. That is the way you survive a big ride like that. Knowing what you're going to eat and where, so nutrition strategy or fueling strategy well before the ride, don't practice or experiment on the ride, and using heart rate or power. Get this book, very, very good book, and target your threshold power, your heart rate throughout the day to pace yourself properly. Guys going past you up a hill, let them go, because chances are you'll pull them back 6 or 7 hours later. They'll be absolutely dog tired because you've just paced yourself. I know it hurts when guys are going past you, but you just have to let it happen. And I will mention the last thing is gearing. Don't turn up to an event like this with 53.39 gearing and an 11.25. Get compacts. Leave your ego at the door. If you've got compacts, who cares? I've got old blokes I ride with who are 60 and they've all got big rings and they beg me for compacts, and then I've spin past them up hills and they're just grinding up the hill. You don't want to grind up a hill after 250 k's right up the Tourmalet or Mount Hotham or Falls Creek or whatever it is, grinding. No, get compacts and just spin away up the hill. And that is a really good little trick you can do. Just get compacts and spin, and it'll rest your legs and it'll make things much easier. So there you go. Fueling, pacing with power heart rate, and just get some compacts because it'll make things much easier. They are my survival tips for a 250k, 4,500 metre, 12 hour, hopefully less, day in the saddle. Links down below. If you like the video, you know what to do. Subscribe wherever the link is, up there or up there on the screen, to my YouTube channel. Jump on the mailing list. All the links are down below. See you next time. Hope this helps, Chris. Good luck.